I've got some radishes and spinach, and I just planted some zucchini plants and tomatoes today.
I harvested my first radishes this morning.
Nice.
Oh my God, Seth, you're harvesting.
Yeah, I was eating a radish salad on our call earlier today.
Wow.
That I made, that I grew with my hands.
Welcome, folks.
Hey, folks. Folks, we're going to give people a few minutes just to settle in. So while you're settling in, close any extra tabs, maybe put your phone on silent, maybe, put your phone in a whole other room if you want to liberate yourself from your devices just to be here for a little bit. Turn on your video if you're able, if not, all is well. And then rename yourself if you'd like, with name, pronouns, etc. And you'll see some prompt on the right hand of the screen. So go ahead and in the chat, put your name and where you call home and one delicious detail of your vision for the future. We're talking about vision tonight. So just like one piece of kind of your picture of the future. For me, it's like really lots of radishes, frankly, lots of really robust community gardens.
Hey, Megan. I'm happy to see you.
Hello, hello.
Hello. Oh my God, James Bellman is here. They probably didn't hear me say that because their audio is still turning on. James, hi.
Hi, how are you doing?
Hi, I'm happy to see you.
Likewise, it's great to see you too.
James and I went to college together a
We
million
did indeed.
many
what was that,
moons ago. 2009 we met, right?
Follow 08. But yeah,
08. 08. Okay. So James and I think one more person I let in just after Seth had given some welcome instructions. So Seth, do you want to repeat yourself?
Yeah. In the chat, hey, Shenna, so good to have you with us. Hello. Put your name and where you call home and your pronouns if you'd like in the chat. So just by way of introduction, and along with one delicious detail of your vision for the future. Just one little snippet of what you'd love the future to look like or include.
Great. Oh, and folks, it's good for you to know you can probably see it, but we are live on Facebook. So say hi to our friends in other parts of the internet that may be tuning in. Yeah. And we are also recording, yes.
Yes, we are.
Okay.
We are recording.
For all of our public workshops like this, folks, we don't have a plan for it yet, but we might post this on our website to share with folks or snippets of it at some point. Very unlikely that it would be, most likely it would be pieces of what we are sharing and it would never be of breakouts. But, for consent and awareness, I want you to know that that's what we're doing.
We will be doing breakouts tonight. We will not be recording you in breakouts, to be perfectly clear. Thank
you.
Yes. So keep them coming, folks, just so we can get a sense of who's with us here, your name, your location, one delicious detail of your vision for the future. Sufficient food and housing for everybody, and queer interspecies ecology and infrastructure.
Woo woo.
Yes.
Hi. I didn't even see that you had registered. Welcome. Oh, this makes me happy. We're just introducing ourselves.
Yeah, so the prompts are here. Put your name, where you call home, and one delicious detail of your vision for the future in the chat. You just keep it so short. Yep. Eliminating waste. Thanks, Phoebe. I love seeing these come in. Cooperatively owned, run, and managed revolving jail support and bail funds. Yep.
Ooh.
Yep. Everything, all of the things.
Oh, and
Co-op.
everything
Oh,
co-op.
co-op, I got it. I got it.
Yeah.
Yeah, Megan, lots of community here. That's part of my vision too, Megan. Just everybody taken, like, what would it be like if we lived in a world where everybody was supported 100%, you know, nobody left out. That's what I'm in this for. Cassandra. Is it Cassandra or Cassandra?
Sandra.
Cassandra? Thanks. Hi. Well, more opportunities for radical transformational storytelling. Yes. Keep them coming, folks.
Which Cassandra
Maya.
is already doing, by the way.
I believe it.
Living her vision for the future,
Yeah.
which happens to be our theme for the night as well.
Yep. Maya says reparations. Rest, embodied healing, and joy in our communities. Yes, Shanna. You might enjoy our workshop we're doing a little bit on radical rest that we're going to do in July. We're going to talk all about that. So just, you know, can expect some goodness. And yes, James, may I just shout you out really quick?
Totally.
Yeah, James,
Totally.
this is indeed the Beehive Collective behind me. James just complimented my poster behind me. And it too has some really beautiful visions for the future. If you've never checked out Beehive Collective, highly recommend it. We won't do a tour right now, but you can look them up. They've got some gorgeous, gorgeous visions for the future. Well, hey folks, it's just such a delight to get to be with you all. There's some familiar faces here and some new faces, and just a really sweet way already with vision and what we'd love our futures to look like. Just like a sweet way to get our first workshop started in our spring series. And we're going to talk about vision tonight. You know, what does it look like to envision the future that we want, and then use those visions as fuel to stay in our work for the long haul and to be doing really badass radical work that is also very rooted in caring for one another and caring for our communities and making sure that we are just really well resourced. And speaking to that, I want to give us a moment just to arrive here, because you might have been moving quickly today. Maybe you're at work or in your garden or already on Zoom for a lot of today. And so just inviting you to, again, if you haven't already, put your phones on silent, close those tabs. I'm going to turn off my screen share right now so I can see all your faces. And let's just take 60 seconds together to be quiet for a moment. And while we're quiet for a moment, just put your attention on your breath and how we can count on that to be there to continue to take good care of us. So I'm going to start a timer. And keep your eyes closed for a moment if they're closed. Stay in the silence for just a moment. And call your attention to the ancestors who are here with us too. You might call to attention the ancestors of the land that you're on, or the ancestors of your blood, or your movement ancestors. And consider for a moment that these ancestors had a vision. They had a vision. They had lots of vision. And regardless of what point in time they were, who they were, you can expect that they had some vision in their cells for care for all living beings, for our ecosystems, for each other. You can imagine that they had a vision for clean air and drinkable water and thriving communities. And we can say thank you to them for having that vision that we get to carry on to. And stay in the silence for a moment longer and just take a look for yourself. There's something that had you say yes to being here this evening. You know, maybe you were invited by a friend or saw it on Facebook, but there was something that had you say, yeah, and I want to be on Zoom for an hour and a half with some strangers, you know. What is it that you'd love to get out of being here? Just consider that for a moment. And whatever that is, you're in the right place. And you can open your eyes and put your camera, put your Zoom configuration on gallery view if it's not already. And just take a moment to look at all of the sweet people who you're here with. We heard some introductions in the chat, but just take a moment even to make eye contact with some of the people who are here. And if you're not on video and you're open to being on video, we'd love to have you on video. And if not, all is well. I promise your hair looks great. But just see all of these powerful leaders and visionaries and badasses who, just like you, are yearning to contribute something great to the world. You know, you wouldn't be here if you all didn't have already some really beautiful vision for what the world could look like. Not just images on the screen. You know, we have a space here. And so, again, my name is Seth, and I'll be one of your workshop co-leaders tonight with Jess Sarante, and then we have our other teammate Anastasia here with us, who's kind of being our stage manager tonight. You won't hear from Anastasia quite as much. You can wave at us, so we know who you are. But she's, you know, holding our kite strings. Like if we're a three-legged stool, we would not be able to stand upright if it weren't for Anastasia Shemkes, I'll tell you what. Great, Phoebe, I see you. And the three of us form Radical Support Collective. We are a team of coaches and trainers for social change leaders, you know, people like you who are doing work for a just, life-sustaining future. And we're here talking about vision, and Radical Support Collective, we have a vision. We would love to be living in a world where we are rooted in justice and bringing forth regenerative economies and regenerative ways of being with one another. And we just want to be able to give social change leaders like y'all everything we possibly can to be well-resourced as you do it. Because to get to that future, it takes us living right now with compassion and joy and ease so we can have that when we get to that future. Which is really why I'm excited to get to do this visioning workshop with y'all tonight, because one of the principles we talk about with our clients and in this program, We Are the Ones, that we're going to share with y'all a little bit about tonight at the end, is the power in holding a clear vision. Because when we have a clear vision, we're able to see clearly what it is we're working for, and then take steps in the present moment to reflect that future right here and now. You know, there's a lot of power in having that clarity of vision so that we can start to pull from it in our present moment. So that's what we're up to tonight. And again, it's the first in a series of workshops, and just really delighted to have you all here with this one. And with that, I'll hand it over to Jess to get us rocking and rolling here. You're muted, friend. You're so excited and you're muted.
I know I was being silly because I realized I was muted and then I couldn't unmute myself for a sec. Hi, you can hear me now? Okay, good. Hi, everyone. Oh my God, it's so nice to see you all. There's a lot of really familiar faces in the room. It makes me really happy. Okay, so our purpose, as Seth already started to say for tonight, is to explore the possibility of each of us, living a life that is guided by our vision for a just and life-sustaining society. So that you can choose, if you want, to use your vision as a guide for how to live your life now. Okay, so I'll share a little more about how this workshop came to be by telling you a little bit about my own journey with this topic. So a little over a year ago, I was spending a lot of time thinking and writing about my vision. If you ever really want to know what you think about something, try to write something short about what you think about it. You really figure out what you know and what you don't know. So thinking and writing about vision was a pretty revelatory experience for me. I was asking myself, what is the world that I want? Really? What does it look like? What does it feel like? How do we get there? Right? And who do my community need to be in order for us to get there? And as I was mulling over these questions, I had an uncomfortable insight, which was that I was treating my vision for a just and life-sustaining society like a fantasy, like something that's way out there. And when all of the conditions of the world around me and about me, when all of those things change, then maybe I can start to consider that it could actually happen, right? It was very abstract and far away from me. And I see some nods, but I'm curious if there are folks in the room, and I'm seeing there are, that resonate with this idea of vision as fantasy world. Yeah. So the more I thought, what I realized was that the more that I was thinking about about vision that way, the more frustrating it actually was. And that I really wanted to change that, because doing the work that I do, I'm in the business, as we might say, of bringing about that world. So it was really not doing me any good to be frustrated every time I thought about it, or to not even want to think about it, which was also an experience I had. How dare you ask me? I'll tell you everything I don't want. Right, which is a very common experience. I can say whenever I talk to change makers about their vision for the future, they'll tell me, I don't want pipelines, and I don't want prisons, and I don't want capitalism. But what do you want, right? And that can be really difficult to name. So what I saw that I did want, as I mulled through all of this, is that I want for my own life, and I imagine this may be the case for one or two or all of the people in this room, this digital room, that even in the midst of the mess and the uncertainty and the pain and the beauty of the world that we inhabit right now, that I want to know that I'm living my life in such a way that I'm giving everything that I can to making a better world come about, right? Regardless of whether I get to see the world without prisons, right? Or the stable climate future, which I actually assume I won't get to see that world, but right, which can be, I can I don't know if you guys feel it, even as I said those words, I could feel the pain of that, to look at what we want and then to see the space between where we are and that world. But regardless of that, and there is good and important work that we can do to honor the pain of that experience. And we're actually going to be I think we are leading another workshop on that at some point this season. But that I want to know that I'm doing everything I can to be a bridge from the current circumstances of life on planet Earth to the vision that I have. How do you all feel about it? Like, do you all want this too? Does this resonate? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So this is something I assumed so, because this is the case for most of the folks or all of the folks that I tend to work with, that we work with at RSC, this yearning to be a bridge into a just and life-sustaining society. And so this is why we created the We Are the Ones program, which is a 14-week group exploration of what we call these principles for builders of a just and life-sustaining society, where we're really breaking down and giving folks tools that will allow them to sustain themselves, to see what it means for them to be a builder of that world, and to navigate the challenges that inevitably come up as we do that, right? So that's why we created We Are the Ones. And that's why we're here tonight, because what we want to do tonight is we want to give you one really important piece of what we give folks in that program, which is the practice of using our vision to guide our lives now. Right. And I'll just kind of like underline all of this by saying, like, the reason being that, like, the only way the world that we envision, which we're going to get into what that is for you in just a few minutes, the only way that world comes into being is by each of us and our neighbors and our friends and our community members, piece by piece, building it from in the midst of what is right now, right? So hence the necessity of learning that skill to live into our vision and letting our vision guide our lives. Okay. So I have a question for you guys. And I want to invite you just to we're going to give you, Seth will put like 2 minutes on the timer. Not like 2 minutes, 2 minutes for you to just reflect on this. And then we're going to hear from some folks. What would it be like for you to just trust that the way that you're living your life right now, that you are doing all that's yours to do as a builder of a just and life-sustaining society? What would that be like to know that you're doing what's yours to do in this moment, right? It may change in the future, but from where you are. So take a minute and actually, you know what? Why don't you just, whatever you're seeing, drop it in the chat, but we'll go silent for a few minutes for folks to think. Share whatever you're seeing in the chat. Great. Belief and belonging, faith, a release of grief, ease, less tension, self-compassion, belonging. Yes, belonging. Happy. Yeah. Less guilt, more joy. And some big ups for that one. Awesome. So not bad. It wouldn't be so bad. Great. I'd love to hear from a couple folks. Like what, just come off mute and jump in. Like, what are you seeing? What would that be like for you? Just in a few sentences.
If I can call on somebody, I'm really curious what you mean by divine timing. That like just piqued my interest. Like if you're willing to share, I'd love to hear like what do you mean by divine timing?
Yeah, so I've been talking a lot about this recently with my friends, but feeling that things are falling into place as they should, and trusting the unfolding of those things as what's supposed to be happening at that time and place. Yeah, and kind of just surrendering to what is there to happen for you in that moment.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Anything else? Anyone else want to jump in?
The idea of less guilt, more joy definitely resonated. This ongoing feeling of everything you're doing is not enough, and then when you have this sweet relief, where you're patient with yourself, it kind of catches you off guard again, and you have to throw yourself back into something. And so, otherwise, you would feel guilty. So that definitely resonated with me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, does anyone else have the experience of like worrying that what you're doing is not enough? Yeah. So there's something that I want to clarify in what I was saying before. When I'm talking about the possibility of us trusting that we're doing what's ours to do, I don't mean knowing that we're going to produce the result that we want, because there is no seeing the future, right? There's this, I don't know if anyone here has ever read the Bhagavad Gita, which is, it's a beautiful spiritual text that I highly recommend. The bottom line that I took away when I read that book years ago was that we must, I mean, this is a spiritual text, right? So it's kind of a little more prescriptive than I'm interested in being here. But essentially what they're saying is we must act in alignment with what we see is needed, and we're not entitled to the results of our actions, right? We have to kind of surrender to the fact that we don't get to know. But so sorry, I don't know what I'm joking on. I've just been drinking tea. The trust I'm talking about is like knowing that we are acting in alignment with our values and in response to our world and in response to the vision that we hold, even though we don't get to know how it will play out. Because my personal experience, and something that I notice often with my clients, is that that's really where satisfaction comes from. It comes from knowing that we're doing what's ours to do, not from how it plays out necessarily. You know, of course, it's really nice when we get the results that we want, but we are not guaranteed that. Okay, so here's where I'm gonna give you a little preview of where I'm taking you from here. So in a moment, we're gonna talk about a framework for making sense of this time in human history that we're living through. And I'm gonna tell you some stories. We're actually gonna tell some stories together. Okay. Then we're gonna do a guided visioning exercise. So I'm gonna guide you into envisioning the just and life-sustaining world that you want. We're gonna tell you a little bit about We Are the Ones. so that you have an opportunity to see if it's something you'd be interested in joining us for. And we're also going to invite you to take the vision that you have from today and to begin to put it into action. Okay, so this is our trajectory for the next hour. We have an hour, Seth, roughly 58 minutes.
Sure
Okay.
do.
All right, let's keep rolling then. So this framework that we're going to look at comes from Joanna Macy and the work that reconnects. So for those of you who know me or have been in workshops with me before, you may know that I have the distinct privilege of being a friend and student of Joanna's. And it is like one of the great honors of my life to know her and to carry her work forth through the work that we do here at RSC. So as we talk about these stories, just like I want to lift up the gift of Joanna and the work that reconnects communities' wisdom, because that's really what we're going to be looking at together here. Okay, so so the three stories of our time. Susan smiles, she knows where I'm going. So anyone who's familiar with the work that reconnects, you may now know where I'm about to take you. And even if you aren't familiar with this, you do already know these stories because you live in this world. So I'm going to invite you in the chat as we're talking through this to just chime in and tell me and tell us what you know about each of these stories, okay? So just share whatever it is that you're seeing. And all three of these stories that we're about to talk about are true, and they are all happening simultaneously. These are all possible ways to talk about our world right now. Okay, so Seth, will you give me our slides, please? Okay, so the first story of our world is business as usual. Another name for this story of our time is the story of global corporate capitalism, right? This is the story of our world told by politicians and business leaders, mainstream economists, corporate controlled media, and you know this story well. Right? The defining assumption of this story is that there is little reason to change the way that we live. The central plot is getting ahead, monetize everything, grow, extract resources, be a good consumer. As humans, we have control over the earth, domination, dominion. That's how you win. It's how you get ahead, right? And again, feel free in the chat to add anything that you want to add. Oh, I see that James did. Extraction, externalization. Yep. So in this story, the extreme weather, the social ills, economic recession, all of these are just uprisings. They're all just temporary difficulties that we're eventually going to recover from. Maybe we'll even figure out how to profit from them, right? There's little reason to change anything. Yes, Shenna, cultural imperialism, colonization. AI will fix it. Yeah, we can techno solve our way out of anything. Okay. So one way that many people choose to talk about what's happening in our world right now, there's little reason to change anything. Let's go to the next one. So the next story will also be quite familiar to you all. So the Great Unraveling. Bottom line here is everything's going to shit, right? This is the story that we hear by independent journalists, by environmental activists, by a lot of academics. And this story is told by people who see business as usual, who see global corporate capitalism, and they see how destructive it is. Right. And it's, the pandemic and the wildfires and mass power outages and homelessness epidemic. And I think that picture on the top right is the Great Pacific Gyre, death in India. Yeah. Right. So here, this whole story of the Great Unraveling, where everything is just falling apart, is backed by evidence of biological collapse, of economic and social system collapse. And really, all you have to do is look at the news in order to hear this story, right? Okay. Is there anything else anyone wants to add? Anxiety is confirmed. Yes, Malin. Right. So let's go to the third story. So now the third story of our time, and remember, all of these stories are playing out simultaneously. So this third story is the story told by those of us who see the unraveling and don't want it to have the last word. So this story, this great turning, is the story of emergence of a new and creative human response, right? That will enable a transition from this industrial growth society of destruction and exploitation and extraction to a just and life-sustaining society, right? And this is the central plot, if you will, for this story, is that of us coming together, of people coming together for the sake of life on Earth. Mutual aid networks, labor unions. What's Brooklyn Grange?
It's the farm you have shown here, the rooftop farm.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's urban farming. It's collective ownership of renewable, energy. It's resistance movements, right? The picture at the bottom is a picture of the Occupy City Hall occupation that happened here in New York in the spring. There's mutual aid, there's the Fridays for Future, right? There's so many examples that we can give, right? So you can see, right, how like all of these things are happening. All of these stories are happening simultaneously. You can take the slides down, Seth. Okay. So I'm going to make a wild assumption, which is that you all are here because either you believe or you want to believe that a great turning can win out. That can be that global corporate capitalism will not have the final say about who we are as human beings on planet Earth. And that the emergence of a life-sustaining world is possible. Okay, and I know, right, that we can see all of these things happening. So I'm not here to convince anyone that any one of these is right or wrong, or that if you experience yourself bouncing between which story you tell yourself or which story you experience yourself living in, that one is right or wrong, because it's not, right? But rather to invite you to look at how the stories that you tell through the work that you do, or the stories that you tell yourself, that those stories will shape your actions and thus your experience of your life and the contribution that you make. So it matters, right? Okay, so in a second, we're going to transition now into visioning. But before we do that, I want to just give us another minute to just let our brains rest. You can stand up and stretch. We'll just have 60 seconds of silence for you to, because this has been a lot of information. Okay. Welcome back. I figured out that I'm choking over here because something smoky is happening downstairs in my kitchen. So I just opened my windows to see. You know, and like someone like burns soy sauce, there's like something like there's like something that happens in the air. I'm pretty sure that's what's happening right now. So I opened my window and we'll see if that helps. Okay. So let's dive into this visioning piece. Yeah. Talking about a just and life sustaining society is just some nice words until we can envision it. When we can really envision it, it can give us orientation, direction, meaning, and energy to fuel the action that we take, right? So we're really acting in a way that we're living in alignment with what we see as possible. So the definition of visioning that we're working with here is grounding into the fullness of our imagination and our desire for the world we most deeply long for. Okay, I'm going to say that again. The definition that we're working with here of visioning. Visioning is grounding into the fullness of our imagination and our desire for the world we most deeply long for. And we have taken this definition from my teacher, Mickey Cashton. So vision is not just, the reason we do this is so vision is not just a story, right? Not just a fantasy like we were talking about before, but that it's something that is alive in us. Okay. And before we go into this, just one last thing I want to point out, which is that your vision already lives in you, literally in your body at a molecular level. Your vision, if you think about any of your deepest longings, very likely they are things that each of us came into this world hungering for. Love, community, connection to land, clean water to drink, healthy, nourishing food to eat, and people to eat it with, right? The health of our neighbors and our non-human neighbors, right? A safe community where everybody feels safe. So there's these very like innate desires that we come into the world expecting, and then we get the reality of what is happening. But the good news in that is that our vision is actually not very far, right? We don't have to look so far in order to see it. We can just look as far as our longings. So if you would like, you can turn your camera off. We're going to go into visioning now. So you can turn your camera off. You can just close your eyes, whatever you'd prefer. And I'm going to invite you to travel with me in your mind's eye into what a just life-sustaining society might look like. So the best way to get to your answer to this, right, because there's no right answer to this, is to just to place yourself in the middle of that world. Okay, and don't push, don't worry, don't try to figure it out. All you need to do for the next 10 minutes or so is just close your eyes and see what you see. Or hear what you hear, or smell what you smell, or feel what you feel. All right, so just allow it. There's no forcing that's needed. Right, so lots of visions can be really bright and detailed and visual, but sometimes they don't come through as seeing, right, but as sensing in other ways. And just, so in short, just relax and trust yourself, right? And if nothing happens, don't worry, you can try this again. We have plans to make a recording of this exercise, so we can share that with you at some point. And just, relax into it. So we're gonna zoom in now. You can almost imagine yourself coming from outer space, zooming in to planet Earth, into the just life-sustaining future of life on planet Earth that you really want to live in. And we're going to start in your home, in the most intimate personal space. So now that you've arrived here, what is it like to wake up there in the morning? Here in the morning. When you open your eyes, what do you see? Who else is there in your home? And what does it feel like to be there with them? When you look around at the home, the walls, whatever it is surrounding you, where does the energy come from if there's energy moving through the walls of that home? Where does the water come from? And the food. And who else lives near you? Maybe they're humans or non-humans, maybe both. And how do you relate to one another? So now maybe you open up your front door if you have one in this home, or you step outside and you look around the neighborhood. In this just life-sustaining world, how is your neighborhood arranged so that the children and the elders and everyone in between is surrounded by security and happiness and beauty? And in this world, what kind of work do you do? Do you have a job? Is work distinguishable in your ideal world from any other activity? Is it separate from the rest of life? And what kind of work do you do in this sustainable, life-sustaining world? What is your particular role? And who do you do it with? And what is collaboration like? How do you work together? If compensation is part of this world, how are you compensated for your work? So now we might zoom out a little more and look at surrounding communities, those surrounding the one that we live in. What physical systems sustain the surrounding communities? Water, energy, food, other resources. And how does your community, the place that you live, and the surrounding neighborhoods, communities, how do they how do they relate with one another? Is there an exchange of resources, goods, other value, money, whatever it is? And how do people know of each other? How do these communities know of each other? How are decisions made between communities? How is conflict resolved? And how are people of different kinds, age, sex, ability, race, you name it, how are different people treated? Is it different? Is it the same? And how do these communities fit within the ecosystems that they are situated? How do they relate to the natural resources and the natural bodies of water and land that surround and sustain them? How do they treat and how do they think about the plants, the animals, and the soils, the waters, the stones, the stars? We're going to zoom out another click. Does your visionary, just life-sustaining society have nations? If it does, how do they organize themselves? If it doesn't, what does it have? How are we organized? At this nation level, larger scale, how do communities meet their physical needs in a just and sustainable way? And how do they relate to people of other nations? How do they think about them? And how much and what kinds of people and goods and information travel between your place and other places? And we're going to zoom out just one more click and look in at the paradigm of this world. What does it feel like to live in this world? What is the kind of consciousness or worldview or tolerance of diverse worldviews that people use to maintain this just, sustainable balance? And in this paradigm, what changes? What stays the same? What is the pace of everyday life? Do people travel? If they do, how fast and by what means? What are the things that fascinate the people of this world? What are the questions that they're asking? What are the kinds of problems that they're solving and working on together? What do they regard as progress? And lastly, what is it that makes these people, the people of this world, laugh? What brings them joy? Okay. Now we're gonna start to leave this just life-sustaining world that we've gotten to bask in, sit in. We're going to come back to our world. World that is as this one is. Okay. You can, when you're ready, open your eyes. Turn your camera back on so we know you're still with us. Hi, everyone. Good. Hello. And what we're going to do is we're going to break you all out for about 8 minutes. Is that right, Seth? 8 minutes. So you can share time however you would like. Your only task is just to talk about what you saw and what it was like. Okay, so no questioning each other's visions, or just listen, just bask in what each other is envisioning. Okay, that's your job for the next 8 minutes, and then we'll come back and we'll hear. And you might see Seth and Anastasia, and I might kind of bop in and come visit and be a fly on the wall in your conversations. But we'll see you in about 8 minutes.
Here we go.
That was exciting to hear. What is this world that you're envisioning like? Tell us. Just jump in.
Go for it, Maya.
So something that we all talked about and something that I mentioned was just kind of like open kind of communal spaces where, like, so when I was imagining, when I came outside my home, it wasn't like, this is my private home. This is like, I'm going over to so-and-so's in this garden. And it's just like really kind of, I don't know, it feels safe, you know, like I feel like sometimes our homes kind of feel like, you know, separate. And then also I was thinking of, you know, give police departments to grandmothers and, you know, just kind of sharing stories and things like that. So that felt really amazing.
I want to live in a world with police departments run by grandmothers. Beautiful. What else? What else? Thank you, Maya.
In our conversation, Susan actually pointed out how the visions that we had in that perfect world or that utopia, competition was deprioritized and collaboration was of the utmost importance. And I didn't quite recognize it until she had sort of given that overview, that bird's eye view, this idea of exchanging ideas, exchanging knowledge, exchanging stories in order to sort of grow together, was really powerful and present as a sort of arc in the vision I had.
I'm going to hop further onto that, and collaboration instead of competition, but also sharing. I've found that sharing is like this radical anti-capitalist thing, and we need to do more of it. And of course, my whole vision is food-based, no more lawns, more gardens, more tool libraries and seed libraries, and you know, less shopping.
One thing that came up was for both, and Madeline, I hope it's okay to share some of the alignment that we had, but we both, or I hit some struggles around zooming out because I was like, well, everything that I'm thinking about in my vision is so locally rooted and so case by case and like tailored to like the eco-region or the bioregion where it is. But then like, how do we think about like trading that or sharing that? And that's kind of where I hit some struggles, but also I realized that my vision from earlier included bail funds, and I was like, well, we don't need no fucking bail funds if there's no prisons. So where does that click? But we also thought about travel and the struggles that come with that want or need.
We also talked about jails a little bit, or rather, I started thinking as we were zooming out and getting more, I guess, to the county level, if there were counties in this future, the state level. I was thinking about how there's a tradition in Inuit families to not punish children, not reprimand children, not give them a timeout or physically hurt them, but instead to use storytelling in order to kind of share moral lessons. And yeah, for some reason that kind of resonated with me as we were zooming out and thinking about the future that didn't have jails, and how that came to be. And it's rooted in the sort of like patience and resources being available so that those stories can be shared, and that we have time to tell those stories. Yeah, that's just that.
I was thinking about, and I've been thinking a lot about the nature of work and how I wouldn't really want, like in an ideal world, I don't think anybody should have to do work that doesn't resonate with them or they're not passionate about. Like as soon as when we were envisioning, and as soon as he said like, would there be work? I was no. Yeah, and I feel like I would feel a lot more comfortable and like guilt-free about really diving into my creative interests, and yeah, sharing those passions with people if there wasn't like this view of, well, what's productive about that, you know?
Our group also talked a lot about the quality of relationships and yeah, moving at the speed of relationships and trust. So yeah, I have a lot of images of like intergenerational like gatherings and like laughter with babies and animals and like simple things that we kind of just forget. But yeah, it was a question of when you asked what brings people joy, and coming back to that.
Yes.
Yeah, I also went to like easeful socializing, where you don't have to spend 20 minutes trying to text back and forth to figure out logistics of hanging with your friend or something, where we can actually just be in community, and in ease together without having to worry about logistics.
Mhm. Amazing. Oh my God, y'all, this is it's so good. So here's what I want to invite you to do now. So that vision, right? You can, I have this like feeling of excitement in me, just like listening to each of you share what you're seeing. It's so resonant. I see all the nods and smiles as everybody's sharing, right? That like this, there's something we are creating together as we share these visions. And so as we start to transition out of our time together tonight, I want to invite you to just for one more second bring in a second, what we're going to do is Seth is going to talk to you for a few moments about We Are the Ones, and then we're going to come back and share actions, and then we're going to head out for the night. But so now that you have this vision, right? It's something you've had before, probably. Maybe there's a piece or two or more of it that's clearer than it was before the conversation that we've had tonight. Hold that dear, please, because your job as a builder of this world is to begin by planting seeds, right? It's like slow motion future farming. What we may not get to see the harvest, right? Maybe there are crops that will come up that we will get to enjoy. We don't know. But right now, our job is to plant the seeds and to revel in the privilege of planting the seeds, right? Because I know for me, it is a damn privilege to know that every day I get to live my life in such a way that I'm putting pieces of the world that I believe in and that I want in my heart out into the world so that they can grow. So we're going to start small with the next step for you all. So here's what I want you to do. Given what we talked about today, given the vision that's emerged for you that you talked about with your buddies that you saw, what is one small action that you're willing to promise to take to bring some piece of your vision into life? Okay, so to give some examples, like Madeline was talking about creative interests. Like Madeline, making your art is planting a seed, right? And Shanna is talking about relationships. Like, is there a seed that you want to plant around building the kinds of intergenerational relationship or community that you can plant right now, right? Or like, yeah, that's enough examples for that. So the challenge that I want to give you for when we come back is to write down a clear step and a date, right? So like, I will buy seeds to plant my veggie garden by Sunday. I will text my friend to invite her and her family over for a backyard picnic by tonight. I will pick up the ukulele and perform a song for my housemates by the end of the week, right? Like, let it be small. Let it be something that you would delight in. And when we come back, we're going to have you drop those in the chat so we can celebrate them together. Seth Bush.
And I actually just want to give us a moment right now to look at it. Just take a moment right now I can tell you're already thinking about it. So just take a beat. I'll go silent for a few moments here and take a look at your action and put it in the chat.
Great.
Thanks for being with us tonight, Maya. It's so good to have you here. So put whatever you've got in the chat.
And for whatever it's worth, y'all, like, you can't get it wrong. You know, sometimes when we invite people to start to take action, they're like, but it's got to be the right one. Comes up. It doesn't. It doesn't have to be the right one. It can just be the next one.
It can be exactly what you already planned, Phoebe. Just the next step.
Yeah.
Yeah. And y'all might notice, you know, as you're looking at this, just some of the natural thoughts that come up, like, oh shit, they're asking me to take an action. Like, there's some worries, there's some doubts. Do I have the time? Do I have the energy? Why me? Why do I have to have this vision and have to do something about it? You know, all the thoughts like that. Yep, I love seeing these come in. And just to note, you know, I want to just point, like, as you're looking at that action, whatever thoughts are there too are so just normal and natural, right? And consider what it would be like for a moment to live with conviction that nevertheless, even with those thoughts, nevertheless, your vision for the great turning is possible. And what would it be like to have just clarity about your part in it? And what would it be like to have a community to help you take courageous action for whatever that action is, and then to help you find the next one? Because sometimes it helps to have support to actually name what our steps are and to stay in the game and keep doing it, you know, to like have support to hold our hands through hearing those worries and doubts and keep going anyway. Just think about what would it be like to have some support to keep going for your vision for the great turning, even when things get a little tough. And that's what We Are the Ones is all about. You know, we're leading this 14-week course to give you a steady drumbeat of support, right? Over 14 weeks in a community of some really incredible peers doing social change work, so that you can do just that. You can be builders of the great turning, and you can do it with that sense of enjoyment and ease and delight, and then get to have a whole group of people that you get to share your progress with and share your excitements with, right? And so this program is for folks who maybe you already have a project you're working on, or a campaign or a movement you're part of. Maybe there's something you want to start. Maybe you're actually just starting to see right now something that you want to start in just taking a look at this vision, and you would just love to have some support to actually carry it through, not have it gathering dust on the bookshelf of your brain, but actually get it into your hands, get it into your actions, be doing the work consistently that's really meaningful to you. And so that's what We Are the Ones is all about. We start on June 14th. We meet every other week. We meet every week, and we alternate between giving you some training and some tools to actually live as a builder of the great turning, to go past those worries and doubts, to do it in a community of support and with ease. We alternate that training with coaching so that you have a space to bring whatever you're chewing on every other week to a community of peers and get some really, really rich support. We're in it right now. We're wrapping up our current cohort, and it's just the best. And we're really excited to start the next round. So if you would like love support to no shit, step into living your life as a builder of the great turning you yearn to be, that's what we're up to. And we would love to just talk with you about any questions you have. What ifs? Is this right for me? Is this a fit for me? Or just tell me more. So if you're even just the slightest bit interested in We Are the Ones, put a plus in the chat right now. If you'd like to hear more, we will then follow up with you if you put a plus in the chat, and we can give you a little more details, and maybe even schedule just a brief chat to see like what would you really love, so that we can even shape it to really fit what you're wanting right now. Let's put them in the chat, the pluses, yes. And I also just want to give you a moment right now. You can open this link. If you want to go ahead and just schedule a 20-30 minute chat with us, you can go ahead, follow that link, get on our calendars. We would love to talk to you. So there's that. And I also wanted to share with you the link for the visioning exercise we did today, so you have it. And as Jess alluded to, we are intending to record us speaking that out loud with even more space than we gave it today, so you can really just delight in that and use that as a tool moving forward. So we'll be sure to let you know when we have that ready. But these are all the questions that we asked, if you want to take a look at that on your own. And I'll also say, would love to have you all join us for some more workshops. I just want to put this up on the screen so you can see what else we have coming up here. This was Envisioning the World We Want. The next workshop is going to be another module from We Are the Ones. So if you're like intrigued by this We Are the Ones thing and would love to get even more taste of it, the next one is going to be about, okay, so you've got an action. How do you sustain your work for those actions that are meaningful? How do you stay in this work of being builder of the great tourney, even when the worries and doubts come up? We got some great stuff on building compassion and empowering relationships, grounding in your body's innate resilience, and as I mentioned earlier, the radical power of rest. So if you're interested in any of that, please come join us. And all of those workshops do help us raise money for our new scholarship fund. We're always trying to figure out, okay, how can we offer what we offer for as easily as possible for as many people as possible, while also being able to have this be the work that we do for our lives. And so our scholarship fund is how we're doing that next. And so if you'd love to donate, to the scholarship fund beyond what you registered for this course, you can see our Venmo here, and I can put that in the chat for everybody in a moment. And just grateful for your support and being here with us no matter what tonight. Yes, we envision a work of accessible, radical support for everybody. And so we just delight in your support in doing that. And finally, folks, now that we're in our final minute, we got our pluses. We'll follow up with some of you. And we have told you about our upcoming workshops. And just didn't we have a good time today? Like, wasn't it nice to be with a group of fellow change makers? Like, I felt like we were almost in the same room together, even though we're spread out all over the country. So just thank you for being in this space together with us and stoking our fires to keep this going. This was the best way to start off our workshop series together. And I want to close, we always close with a poem or a quote. And Jess, I want to go off script a little bit and actually share just a really simple quote to leave you with here from Audre Lorde. And Audre Lorde says, "When I dare to be powerful, to use my strength in the service of my vision, then it becomes less and less important whether I am afraid." So go forth. Bring your beautiful visions into the world. Keep in touch. We would love to hear your celebrations. We'd love to hear about, your actions. Email us, add us on Instagram at Radical Support Collective, by the way, if you want to hear more about what we're up to. And we're going to stick around for a few more minutes. If you have any questions about We Are the Ones or anything else we talked about today, we will be here and to chat with you for another 5 or 10 minutes. And for those of you that are hopping off, mwah, so good to be with you. We look forward to having you with us next time.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, y'all. Take care.
Thank you.
I have a question, Jess. Hi.
Oh, yeah.